Elisha's there with the sons of the prophet. And a man comes in and he has 20 barley loaves. Now, we don't know how big how big a loaf was or how much bread 20 barley loaves would be. But Elisha told him to take the 20 barley loaves and go feed the sons of the prophets who were there. And he said, there's 100 men here. There's not enough food here to feed 100 men, not enough bread for that. And Elisha says, feed them, let them eat, and you'll have food left over. And I can't help but say that reminds us of what? And the 4,000, both cases. There was not enough food in either time with Jesus feeding the 4,000 or the 5,000. Not enough food there to feed the multitude that was there. Not enough food here to feed this 100 people. But in all three cases, there was food left over because of what God did. Okay, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end if we have some time there. So now we move into the story of Naaman. Very familiar story with Naaman and his leprosy. So let's run through the narrative on that. We'll talk about that a little bit. Naaman's a great man in Syria. Now remember Syria, if you look at the map, it's off up to the right, across the Jordan River, up past the Sea of Galilee, way up to the right, Damascus being the capital. Naaman's commander in the Syrian army. He's a mighty warrior. And there's one phrase used in that first verse that we might kind of skip over a little bit. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, who was a great warrior. And because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. Look at that word Lord there. How's it written in your text? All caps. Okay, generally in most ways translated in most texts, indicating who is that? That's Jehovah. Okay, so Jehovah has given Naaman victory. Well, who's Naaman fighting for? Syria. Okay, not one of God's nations. So don't know who all he's given victory to. We do know that Syria had come in and defeated Israel at times, punishment for their wickedness by God. But just a little phrase there that kind of catches your attention to think about it. Jehovah giving Naaman victories. He's fighting for Syria. Not something we would think about. Just going through there. Mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. Okay, leprosy. Leprosy, a dreaded disease. Go back earlier to the time of the children of Israel, and they put them outside the camp. Very contagious. In fact, you kind of wonder how, if Naaman has that, how he's associating with the king of Syria, as was talked about a little later, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Why was he around them so much? If it's such a contagious type thing, it's an infectious disease of the skin. And it damages the nerves in the skin, and it will actually lead to gangrene and deformity if it's not treated or healed. And then, of course, no cure for it that we know of, if you read about it in the Old Testament times there. So a very, very, very dreaded disease. So you see why, when this what we're about to come up with and talk about possibly being healed, why everybody do anything you could to get healed of that. It's a terrible, terrible disease. So on one of the raids into Israel that the Syrian army had made, they had captured this young maiden. And she was a servant to Naaman's wife. And so she told her master about this prophet in Israel that could heal Naaman. Well, as you think about it, going from her to the wife, to Naaman, to the king, things get a little bit mixed up. Naaman tells the Syrian king about it, and the Syrian king says, okay, I'll send you down to the king of Israel, and requests he heal you. And he sends all these great gifts down with him, significant gifts, because Naaman's an important man in Syria. And the king of Syria wants to get the king of Israel to heal him. Now, here's what the letter says. When you get this letter, I've sent you Naaman, my servant, heal him of his leprosy. Well, king of Israel, and again, it's one of those unnamed kings. We don't know which one it is. But the king of Israel gets this and says, wait a minute. Am I God? Am I God? Do I get to make decisions on who lives and who dies and things like that? You sent me this man to heal him of leprosy? I can't heal anybody from leprosy. What are you trying to do? Pick a fight with me? You trying to pick a fight with me? So he takes it as an insult type thing. You're just making fun of me. I can't heal leprosy. So, okay, the story got a little mixed up from the time that the Israelite captive young lady had told her master, and then to Naaman, to the king, and then back down. So the two kings are about to, they're on the same page for this thing here. But Elisha hears about it. Elisha hears about it. And he sends word and says, let him come to me. He'll know the prophet in Israel. And we've seen that expression multiple times. This will happen that you'll know there's a prophet or a God in Israel. Seen that same phrase used a number of times. So Naaman goes over to Elisha's house. Now, from all of the reading, he's got some entourage with him. We don't know how many, but chariots there, horses. I mean, it's plurals mentioned several times there. It's not just like Naaman's, one little guy riding a donkey going over there. He's an important guy. So he pulls up in front of Elisha's house. And normally somebody would come out to a dignitary like that and be glad to see him. They would greet him and make something special out of it. Elisha let him come out of his house. He sends a messenger out. And what's worse than that, than to send the messenger out, what did he tell him to do? Go down to the Jordan River. Go to the Jordan River. Now, that would not be just, like over the next block. It's some distance to travel to go to the Jordan River from where they were. Go to the Jordan River and dip in the river 7 times. You'll be clean. Pretty simple. But Naaman, he was furious. And the words used here just stagger you when you think about them. Indeed, I said to myself, what's he saying? I thought, either because of who he was, this dignitary, or because of what it was he had to have done, whatever reason, I said to myself, here's how it's going to happen. Elisha didn't come out. He sends his servant Gehazi out and says, by the way, go down to that muddy Jordan River. Go down the Jordan River and dip yourself 7 times in there. And when you come out, you'll be clean. So he's ready to head home. After all, we got rivers up in Damascus that are much better than the Jordan River. Some of his servants seem to have a little cooler head than what Naaman did. They say to him, my father, my Lord, they greeted him. If this prophet had told you to do something really complex and complicated and special, you'd have done it, right? Why don't you do this simple thing, okay? How much more when he says this, go down and dip in the river 7 times and you'll be clean. They're trying to contrast the seriousness of this leprosy with the simplicity of what he said, do to get rid of it. You thought it'd be something great and fancy, something. If you'd told you to do that, You know, you'd have done it, but it's just simple. You got this leprosy. Do this and get rid of it. So he does. Changed his mind. And if somebody got to you with you had leprosy, they said, look, this is all it's going to take to get this leprosy gone. It's that serious that you do. Okay. So he goes down, he dips in the Jordan River 7 times, according to the saying of the man of God, doing what God has said to. And the results were, his flesh is like that of a little child, totally cleansed of his leprosy. Now, put yourself in Naaman's spot. You just came up from that 7th time dipping in that Jordan River, and you look at your flesh. How are you feeling right now? How are you feeling right now? Ready to go home to Syria and shout, and yes, yes, yes. Not what he did. First, he recognized where it came from. He said, now I know there's no God. Listen to that. Look at that. There's no God in all the earth except in Israel. What's Naaman used to worship back in Damascus? Idols. Idols. Had idols cleansed his leprosy? So there's no God in all the earth except this God in Israel. He doesn't go home. When Jesus healed the 10 lepers, what did 9 of them do? Kept going. Look, when the priest, I understand that, to show himself. One of them came back. What does Naaman do? He goes back to find Elisha. He's not going to say thank you. What's he got for him? He got gifts, apparently significant gifts. They already brought significant gifts to the king of Israel. Elisha refuses the gifts. Why? I don't know. Any number of reasons that you think can come out. Read some of the commentators about it. There's various reasons given. He didn't want to be an obligation to Naaman that, I bought my cleansing. There's any number of reasons, but Elisha refuses the gifts totally. And Naaman does something that's might seem a little strange to us. He wants 2 mule loads of dirt to take back with him to Damascus to build an altar with, to have a place to build an altar. Now, what's special about the dirt in Israel? Well, nothing really. Dirt on the whole earth belongs to the same God. He created all of it, right? But Naaman felt so special about this, what had happened to him in Israel. There's no God except in Israel. He wanted this to take back with him. And he said, I will not sacrifice to any other God except Jehovah. Now, Naaman's got a very unusual situation to deal with when he gets back. And let's go to verse 18. We're going to talk about that. Well, I thought I changed that around. Click one more time. There we go. Yeah, let's get Gehazi first. We're going to go get that done. All right. Elisha had refused the gifts. Gehazi said, it's pretty nice stuff there. So he goes and chases down Naaman as he leaves. And he approaches the chariots, and Naaman sees him. He stops, gets down, and says, is everything okay? Is all well? And he said, well, there was 2 of the sons of the prophet that came to visit my master, and he asked if he would send two changes of garments back to him and 2 talents of silver. Well, Naaman's mad he does it. He doesn't just give it to him. He has his servants take it back for him. He said, I gets back. And Naaman says, Elisha says, where you been? And like so often happens, one wrong brings on what? Another wrong. What did he do to? He lies. I've been anywhere. And because of this, the leprosy was on Naaman, it was on Gehazi and his descendants because of that. All right, we'll back up here at this one point, right? Bring my clicker to click here, right there. Go back to Naaman, and he bought this dirt, got this dirt to take back, and he said, I will sacrifice to no other gods. Which when I get back, I'm not going to worship at idols. I've been worshiping because what? There's no God except in the land of Israel. But Naaman's got this circumstance to deal with. My clicker to click on down. Verse 18 is what we're going to look at. So if you got your text over there, look at 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 18. Let's read it, and then the people now. I've asked Jeff to talk about this a minute here. May the Lord pardon your servant. Now, the Lord is Jehovah again, all caps there. May this thing, what he's about to talk about, may the Lord pardon your servant when my master, the king of Syria, my master the king goes into the temple of Rimmon to worship there. And he leans on my hand, which I'm right there with him, and I bow down in the temple of Rimmon. When I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, may the Lord, Jehovah, please pardon your servant in this thing. What's he saying? What's he saying? Jeff?
Well, two things about the story of Naaman.
I've got your slide next if you want it. Okay. Okay. Sure.
To me, obviously, this is a changed man. When he's still a leper, his behavior is very arrogant, it seems to be, very pompous, very condescending, even of the rivers in Israel. So you contrast his conduct there with his conduct now. He's expressing faith in the supremacy of Jehovah. He's offering gifts for Elisha. He goes out of his way to try to repay these gifts. That wasn't the same Naaman as before. He's asking for forgiveness before he even commits this sin of idolatry. So that's the first thing that popped out to me, was that this is not only his skin was changed, but it seemed like some of his heart, or maybe his heart was changed as well on the inside. But just like a new convert, we can make the connection to a new convert. When we were baptized, we don't have it all figured out yet. I mean, there's still a lot of questions. There's still some situations we may fumble around and not exactly see the perfect way out of dilemmas. And he's got a dilemma here. So he should have, well, we can say should have all night long, but he's asking, it seems that he's asking for forgiveness before he commits the sin. And I don't want to be presumptuous about that, but that's the way it appears to me. So how it was to be handled. Notice the prophet does not say when we're in the ugly donkey, if he says go in peace.
Yeah, right here, right there. Yeah.
There wasn't any approval or disapproval given. Just go in peace. Or may the Lord's peace be upon you as you travel. He didn't even live in Jerusalem. I mean, this is Samaria. The temple's in Jerusalem, so he couldn't even worship God properly. He stayed in Samaria because the temple's not there. And then there's some modern day equivalents of new converts who are struggling with life. I had to face this myself the other day, and it's a challenge. When you're young in your faith, how are you going to answer those kind of situations? As we mature and get older, they get easier to answer, but when you're young, when you face it for the first time, your knees knock. They really do. It's a tough thing to answer.
Let's back up and run through those again. Because I've on the slide, Jeff was talking. What did he say the king would expect me to do? The king would expect me to go in the temple with him, right there beside him, like I always have, and be there with the idols. So is he saying this to Elisha? Does it say, can I have your permission to go in with the king? I mean, that's what I'm expected to do. I mean, he's my boss. He's what I'm not my boss. He's my king. So is he asking permission to go in with him? Now, would that be a sin to go into to the temple of the idols? Showing the very appearance of evil. I mean, that's certainly evil he's going back into here. If he just, and I certainly believe in what Jeff said, he said, totally changed. No God except in Israel. I won't worship any God except that. Took the dirt back with him, offered these gifts. So is he trying to get permission from Elisha before he goes back, knowing what he's got to do? That, and like Jeff said, Elisha doesn't say, okay, that's all right. I understand. You got to learn some things. No, sir. You can't go back and do that. You got to change jobs. You got to go. You can't do any of that. He says, go in peace. So my question I put up here was, how would you answer a new young convert, maybe still living at home, maybe attended with some of our young folks, really got to doing some deep studying, and was converted, became a true Christian, and asked about going back with their parents to the denomination worship? You see a parallel somewhat with this here? How are you going to deal with that? And like Jeff said, that's happened. I mean, that's not a made up story. I mean, it truly happens. We have to be very careful. I mean, all of us know that. You come down to a person and say, no, you must absolutely not do that. Your parents are in deep sin. And what are you going to do to them? Other things you say, oh, yeah, that's okay. I understand. Go ahead. There'll be no problem with that. Well, what have you done then? So now, that's fine. The corner up there doesn't say lesson like I used to put up there. It says thoughts. Some of you think about, how would you deal with this? And how does this verse apply to that? Move on. A couple more things right quick. I'll leave that hanging right there if you think. All right. Another story here from Elisha. Floating sand. It's real short. He was with the sons of the prophets, and they had outgrown where they were staying, where they were living. And they said, let's go down to Jordan and cut some trees and build some new quarters to live in here. And they asked Elisha to go with them, and he does. And they're cutting the trees, and one man shouts out, said, oh me, about my axe head has come off the axe, off the handle here, and it was a borrowed axe. And what's an axe head? What's an iron going to do when it gets that water? It's be gone, okay? Like the last time you saw it. So comes up, asks him, says, where'd it go in? He tells him, and he cuts a stick. No magic stick. He cuts a stick, throws it in the water. The axe head floats. He tells him to go get it. Significance of that? It's this faith-building thing for these sons of the prophets. To see God work through a life. It's a very little short, very little. We're going into the next chapter now. We'll go back with Syria now, and we can talk about war, some rage. So there's no indication necessarily that this follows right back when Naaman had come into Israel and been healed, and goes right back and turns around and has a war. There's nothing to say the timeline fits. These stories are all several of them compacted together. Where this fits in the thing, again, we don't know exactly, but the kings aren't mentioned, so we can't get a true timeline of what it is. Every time the king of Syria would bring his forces into Israel and camp at such and such space, Elisha would go tell the king of Israel where they were. To the point that, and he was always right, to the point that the king of Syria said, we got a spy. We got somebody, a traitor in our camp here. Somebody is telling Israel what's going on. Every time we go into battle, they're getting a message out, and they're telling the Israelites what's going on. he finds out that Elisha's the one that's doing this. And I told you about to go to watch for Dothan. Here's Dothan here. It's a little hard to see on this mountain. I did that because I want to get Syria up here. So here's Syria, here's Damascus. So they're way up here, coming down into, and Dothan's here, Samaria, the capital of Israel's here. So they come down to Dothan. I get the proximity of these two here. That's 10 miles right there, first little blip. So you're talking about, 15 miles, maybe 12, 15 miles from Dothan to Syria. To Samaria. So, king of Syria sends in his army, large army, to Dothan. It's where he found out that Elisha is. And he surrounds it. Comes in it, and he surrounds the city. Lines up there. And Elisha's servant. Now, it's a time and again. Who's Elisha's servant? Well, Gehazi, we think was, okay. Maybe he is at this point. We don't know. The timing doesn't fit in here necessarily. Or maybe Elisha's got another servant now. We just don't know those things, okay? And the servant sees this massive army out there. Elisha tells him, no, those with us are more than those that are with them. And I'm sure this servant's saying, did I hear that right? Type, because obviously what he's saying, that's not true. There's this massive Syrian army out there. Elisha prays to God and says, open his eyes till he can see. Open his eyes and let him see not what's really out there. Let him see that you're out there. He does. He sees the mountains full of horses, chariots of fire there to protect them. God's army's out there. And yes, those of us are more than those that are with them. So as the army approaches, Elisha prays again and says, ask God to strike him with blindness. And he does. And so the army blind, they take and they lead them as if they were going to lead them back out. But they take them down to Samaria. Now, Samaria is the capital of Israel. Who's going to be there? Well, the king and all the powerhouse of Israel is going to be there. So that's where they lead them to. And when they get there inside the city of Samaria, their eyes are opened, and what's the king of Israel going to do to them? Well, it's my enemy, right? I'm going to kill him. But Elisha said, no. Feed them bread and water. And said, oh, I'm sorry. That's why it messes up your recording. I bumped the mic too many times. Feed them and send them home. Why? I don't know. Before one time, remember the story when, was it Ahab that let the king go? And God got onto him because he shouldn't have done that? Here, it's like the opposite. Here he says, Elisha sends him home. Was it because of this act of kindness or what? But Assyria does not come back for a long, long time.
Okay, a couple of thoughts about this. Back to the story about feeding the 100 men with 20 loaves here. That they eat and have something left. Why shouldn't we be surprised at that? Why should we be surprised?
Look at some of these verses. Back in Genesis 18, about Sarah having a son. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Is anything God can't do? Where'd all this stuff come from? God made it all, right? It's like stealing the storm on the Sea of Galilee. Bunch of S's. Stealing the storm. Why should we be surprised that God can steal the storm? Who made all the nature to start with? 32, same thing. Is anything too hard for the Lord? A couple of passages in Luke. That is impossible for God. Verse 9. One passage that says, impossible for God to do. What is that? Lie. Hebrews 6:18. So when I put the verse up there, I said, but nothing, God, nothing's impossible. Yeah, well, I think that says. That verse did pop in my mind. God can't lie. All right, another one. Let's tell him to go wash the Jordan River 7 times. Okay? Complicated? Hard? Go cleanse your leprosy? No, I don't think so. I mean, why would it? I mean, magic about that water in Jordan River. What's it going to do to it? Kind of a strange way to heal leprosy, right? Go dip in the Jordan River 7 times. Any special power in that water? What if he gone back to Damascus like he started to and dipping the water up there? Well, what God said do? It's not obedience. Okay? What Mark 16:16 say? Didn't the magic in this big tub of water up here? No, we all know this. Seems like a very strange way, though, to be saved from our sins, right? To go up here and get all wet in this big tub of water. Doesn't matter. What God say do? That's what he said do. So, don't get rid of leprosy, Naaman. You want leprosy gone? Do what? Go dip in that Jordan River. You want to be saved from your sins? Do what? Be baptized. It's that simple. Okay, it's not hard. We try to make it hard. Some people. And then this point here about, I thought, be like this. Who knows? Who knows? It's not the way of man to direct his own path. Who knows? God knows. He tells us what to do. He does. Righteousness. Do what? We try to set up our own way of being righteous. We got to do what? We got to submit to the righteous. I'd say. Or wanting the gifts. My dad, some of you knew him years ago. I'd educated, served elder for most churches here in the county for a number of years. He used to tell me many years ago that his opinion, the one word to describe what's the worst thing about this world we're living in right now was this word, greed. Everybody wants. I. Asking that. These two things. Leprosy for one. And who was he associated with before this? God's prophet. Be careful, all those. Materialism, another word for it. I want.
That's basically what behind Margaret.
Well, yeah. Easy way to get quick. Get rich. Seems like it's something about working. Some verse about working, or how to work. Okay, comments? Somebody. Okay, it's time for the bell. Where's Dennis? That clock says we're a minute past time. Dennis is never late, so. All right, thanks.